After working with thousands of restaurants for the past 6 years, I've noticed that the top 1% tend to do 5 things differently to grow their sales, which you can copy. Starting with strategy number 1, marketing automations. Marketing automations maybe sounds fancy and buzzwordy and maybe even scary. I get it. Who wants to hand control over to the robots? But don't worry, it's not actually scary at all once you get the basics. The best example of this I've seen lately is from my friend Rahul, who owns and operates Saffron Indian Kitchen in Philadelphia. I've seen Rahul firsthand drive hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional sales with marketing automations. And so I'm going to share a couple of the best practices that he does regularly at Saffron, starting with his automated emails. Rahul noticed that his customers would ask their servers for menu suggestions, since his staff knows the menu best. And he recognized that as an opportunity to provide extra customer service and drive extra orders by training the staff in the dining room how to upsell. But the problem is that when people are ordering online, he couldn't have that same personal touch that helps people decide and drives more sales. It's not like you could have his staff send every guest ordering online emails or chat messages as they're placing their order. So what Rahul did is he set up automations that send a short email highlighting suggestions from the menu that might appeal to those customers. It waits 3 days after a customer has ordered the dish for the first time, and then it sends them a personalized email saying, Adam, if you liked our tandoori lamb chops, you're also going to love our tandoori chicken. The email also includes a photo of the dish so that guests can eat with their eyes as they're being suggestively sold, and a direct link to ordering that exact dish on Rahul's website. When these types of emails go out, just over a 30-day period, Rahul generates over $4,000 in additional sales. And once they work, Rahul targets additional customer events. Like when he gets new mailing signups on his website that put their email address to join his email list. And once that was in place, Rahul started creating other types of automation that target specific parts of the customer journey. Like when he gets a new email sign up on his website, he has an automation to convert that new email sign up into a new order. And when he gets a customer that used to be a regular, but that hasn't visited or ordered from him in a while, he sends them an email that's designed to revive them and get them to order again. He's thought of almost every scenario that a customer would be in and has created automations to get them to that next step in their customer journey. And because of that, these automated emails have bumped his sales by over $9,400 a month. And the best part is that they cost next to nothing to send out. He's sending thousands every month for less than $50 all in. Did I say that was the best part? Well, maybe there's another best part, because even better than costing no money, it costs Rahul no time. If Rahul had to send all of those emails at once, his fingers would fall off because there's thousands of them that are going out every week. But because he set up automations, they don't cost much money or much time. In addition to automated emails, you can add automated text message marketing to your marketing plan. Texts are great because they have an extremely high engagement rate. The research shows that 1 in 3 people open up text messages within just 1 minute of getting them. I've seen text message marketing work wonders for another friend of mine, Timmery Shibley, the owner of Doodah Diner in Wichita, Kansas, because she sent out a text to her customers telling them about a dish that they used to love that was back on her menu. And that one text led to thousands of dollars in trackable sales in that single week alone. Another great example of this is my friend Omar, the owner of Talkin' Tacos, who wanted to boost his restaurant's online sales. So what he did is he created an automated campaign that sent a text after customers got their order. It waited about an hour and then it said, hey, how was your experience? Leave us a review. He just wanted to prompt the customer after they'd eaten so that their thoughts would be more likely to be shared on Google reviews. And that quickly helped him rack up more than 100 5-star reviews. This in turn boosted their conversion rate and led to more search traffic and made him more popular on Google, driving more customers. And negative reviews were also automatically flagged and forwarded to his managers for them to address, so that customers could see that they listen and care about what they had to say. Look, if you're a restaurant owner and you're not utilizing automated marketing, you will lose business to your competitors. Because as the old marketing saying goes, the company that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. So obviously, if you're making less money than each of your competitors on a customer relationship, you won't be able to afford to spend as much to acquire customers. You also can't enhance customer experience or pay your staff well or invest in your restaurant's ambiance. Okay, so your marketing automations have got customers coming in the door. Now, how do you ensure that when they do buy at your restaurant, their order sizes are as large as possible? That brings us to strategy 2, upselling. Because another key that the most successful restaurants use is smart upselling in the ordering process. Upselling itself isn't new. Just think about the last time you heard, "Do you want fries with that?" That is upselling. And it's done at scale for McDonald's, which literally makes them tens of billions of dollars a year at this point. One study estimated that one strategy in McDonald's alone drives a revenue increase of 15 to 40% annually, which means that if you combine it with their actual revenue, that is driving them an additional $25 billion in sales in 2023 alone. Other well-known restaurants such as Chipotle or Subway or Pizza Hut also build upselling techniques into their standard operating procedure. But you can't just task your staff with upselling and not explain how to do it. Because in independent restaurants, the staff are often making minimum wage and aren't on board with what they think will just make the owner richer with no incentive to care about it themselves. Which is why what Steven, the owner of Planta, did was brilliant. He came up with a simple idea that deals with that lack of staff enthusiasm, where he offered a $500 Amazon gift card to the server that made the most money in upselling his high margin dishes every month. But more importantly than just having employees incentivized, it's important to make sure your online ordering systems, where more and more orders are flowing, are also doing smart upselling. If you're using online ordering systems that don't have smart upselling built in, then there's a way to manually set it up. And that's a great strategy for upselling customers that are in your dining room. But how about that increasing number of customers that are ordering off premise? For those customers, we need a system that does that smart upselling like our favorite server does. And if you're using an online ordering system that doesn't have smart upselling built in, then there's a way to manually set it up that a lot of people don't know about. Here's how. On every entree, you add 2 new modifiers, and you leave them as optional, but let guests impulsively add more to their cart. The first one should be called select your beverage. So as they're adding that entree to their cart, they think that the next step is to select their beverage, and it leads to an increase in upsell revenue on beverages, which should feature the top 3 beverages that are typically paired with that dish. And the second one is called 3, select your dessert, where you put in your 3 most popular desserts. Just building those asks into your ordering process often increases sales by over 10% alone. And if you want to take it a step further, there's a way to do it with the new AI technology. But before we get to how to use AI in upselling, if you're enjoying this video so far and you want more content that you can use to grow your restaurant, then hit that subscribe button down below, because every month I post a few new videos on exactly that, based on my experience in working with thousands of restaurants over the years. Anyway, back to how you can use AI to increase upsell revenue. Because systems like DoorDash, Storefront, and Owner.com have now built in upselling with AI. Meaning that the technology learns over time which dishes are most commonly paired with others, and then it makes those suggestions to the guest as they're building their order to make the most money possible from upselling them. Now, you might be noticing that there's an issue with building these upselling things into your ordering. That issue is that upselling won't work if the items on your menu aren't things that customers actually want to try. If customers don't think your deep fried pickle sounds good, then it doesn't matter how many times you hit them with, "Do you want deep fried pickle with that?" The answer will almost always be no. That brings us to strategy number 3, menu market fit. Menu market fit is the match between what's on your menu and what your market already wants. You may be thinking, Without a crystal ball, there's no way I could possibly know what people in my city want. And the good news is that crystal ball actually does exist. It's called Google Keyword Search, and it lets you check how many people in your area are searching for specific dishes, which is great because if somebody's searching Google for specific dishes, it means that they're craving them in your area and they don't yet have a go-to place for them. For example, you might have noticed there's a huge trend in the restaurant industry right now around birria tacos. Suddenly, hundreds of people in every city want them, and the typical go-to Mexican places like Chipotle and Taco Bell don't offer them on their menu, which meant that the first Mexican place in every city who added those birria tacos to their menu would get to capture that menu demand and get that menu market fit. And some restaurants got ahead of that trend, like Talkin' Tacos, by keying into how many people were asking for birria tacos and then doing the research to realize that this was a really fast growing dish and that they needed to add it to their menu. These hidden needs change over time, so you should continually think about trends that fit the customer's needs and how that relates to your cuisine type. You can then use the Google Keyword tool to check your guesses on how much more popular dishes are getting in terms of Google searches. And just because you hit a trendy food item once doesn't mean it's enough to carry the success of the restaurant forever. We can all think back to the frozen yogurt trend, where that was the fastest growing category within the food business. And now all the frozen yogurt chains have dropped in popularity, their sales are all down, and the companies that entirely built around that trend were hurt. So it's important to build a trend around a cuisine type and then ensure that our menu of that cuisine type is constantly cycling the dishes that are the most popular and relevant in current culture. So think of it less like finding a solution to an issue and more like constantly staying ahead of emerging trends and what guests want. If you have the right online ordering system, you can even see how many new customers you're getting from each dish on your menu. That's what our platform at Owner.com lets you do. It integrates with your point of sale and sits on your website to see how many new customers you're getting from each of your dish pages. That info then helps you make improvements based on customer volume because you can see which dishes are causing you to get new customers. Now, just because you know what food to offer in your town based on your searches and customer trends doesn't mean that customers will choose to order from your restaurant versus the others around them. Because let's say you own an Indian restaurant in a town with 7 Indian restaurants. How do you know, Rahul, that customers will actually choose your restaurant over the others? That's strategy 4 that the top 1% of restaurants master: storytelling. To make this point, we're going to call upon the wisdom of a business legend. Of course, I'm talking about Taylor Swift. Why do Swifties love Taylor Swift? Why is she the first female artist to have 4 albums in the top 10? Why did Time magazine name her Person of the Year? One word: storytelling. She's vulnerable, she's honest, and she infuses her songs with her stories. Those stories lead people to connect deeply with her and to want to support her in everything she does. She even used her story in the latest Eras tour, showcasing her transformation over time. She shares her failures, her insecurities, her heartbreaks, and lays it all bare, which allows her fans to connect with her on an emotional level. So we can all take a page out of her book, even as we're building our restaurants, and build our story and our restaurant's story into the dining experience. Like the Taylor Swift of Indian restaurants, my friend Rahul, who I mentioned earlier in this video and who is a master of storytelling. Rahul is doing the equivalent of singing "You Belong With Me" on his website. Because on his website, he's telling his story about how he started as a kid in India who loved to cook, and how he went from a kid in India to then getting to live in the United States and getting to share his favorite parts of India, his old home, with the people in his new home. This beautiful story leads to the people in his community deeply connecting to what it is that he has to offer, and it becomes more than just about his delicious food. It becomes about supporting him as a person. One of my friends in the restaurant industry always says that people don't support businesses, they support people. So by sharing your journey, your customers learn about what makes you a unique person, your hardships, the obstacles you faced, and they find moments to connect with you and sympathize with you on. This creates an emotional connection to you and your restaurant and your food. And that connection is what sets you apart from all of the other Indian restaurants or restaurants of your type. And it should go beyond just having the story on the website. Ultimately, every part of your experience should share that story, or hint at it at least, so that you can infuse it in the dining experience itself. If you walk into Rahul's restaurant, you see his story being told everywhere, from the photos of his family on the wall and the way the dining room is decorated and how that conveys the part of India that he grew up in, and everything about that experience is helping reinforce this customer belief and connection in what it is that he offers and how he got there. Stories have to be a consistent and natural part of your brand. There's an old marketing phrase, the rule of 7, that says that a customer needs to see your marketing at least 7 times before a message really sticks in their mind. And Red Crow Marketing discovered that messaging requires up to 5 views to read, to even notice it, and then 10 to become memorable, and 20 to drive a conversion. That's what will separate your restaurant from the others in your town. Without sharing your story, you're just another restaurant in a world with countless restaurant options. So now you've got your story front and center, and your marketing automations, and your smart upselling. But none of this matters if you run out of money and go out of business, which is where strategy 5 comes in, balancing the art with the science and the hard math of running a restaurant. This success strategy involves 2 hats, not literally, but you can imagine having your artist hat, which you have to wear most of the time as a restaurant owner, because you don't want people to think of this as a business. You want them to think about it as an experience, the food, the atmosphere, the vibe. You're an artist and your restaurant is your canvas. But at the same time, you also have to put on the business hat, because if your goal is to serve more customers artfully for as long as possible, we also need to think like business owners, like finance people. Without doing that, you will simply bleed money. According to BizFluent, the average profit margin for restaurants is between 3% and 5%. And as you know, the number one highest cost for restaurants is going to be food cost, especially in this market with all the supply chain issues. Certain items are going to be very popular, like steak, but also have a ridiculously high food cost, which means low profit even if they drive high sales. Another example would be lobster dishes, because the cost of lobster has gotten up to $10 per pound. So the artist within might want to offer a lobster dish with pasta, but then the business person has to consider the cost. Will it negatively impact your restaurant's future? To answer that question, we have to calculate the gross profit in every order. Kava is the perfect example of a concept that's nailed this. You may know them from their IPO just a few months ago. What's so inspiring about their story is their CEO, Brett, started the company less than 20 years ago. And in less than 20 years, Brett built that restaurant chain to be worth over $4.5 billion. Was that their owner had a finance background and approached his menu design around finance. What I mean by that is, rather than just starting with the dishes that most people think of as Mediterranean, like kebabs and hummus bowls, which are going to have a very high food cost as a result of the cost of meat and chickpeas, what he did is he started by asking himself, what are the most popular Mediterranean dishes that we can offer with a food cost of under 10% in most cases? That's what led him to a menu of Mediterranean bowls and pita sandwiches. By keeping his food costs across his menu so low and not adding the typical high food cost items like kebabs and full bowls of hummus, he had way higher profitability on every order. And that profitability gave him more profit to use in building his team, in marketing his restaurant, and attracting investors, which then led him to be able to expand at a much faster pace than usual, because he's taking home 20% rather than 3 to 5%, 4 times as much. If I were to pick out the one thing that all of the fastest growth restaurants have in common, it's this. They have really strong math behind their business through having very low food costs. They design their menu around it in addition to making sure that it tastes good. And that math enables them to grow much faster and make more on every order than all of their competitors do, which means they can spend more money to acquire customers than their competitors can. So just as it's important to use that inner artist to create a menu that people love and an experience that's distinctive, it's also important to use the inner math nerd to ensure that the menu is contributing as much as it can to your profitability, because that is what leads to a healthy business and a huge advantage over time. The The other great thing about making sure that food costs are low is that it multiplies the profit that comes from every other strategy. Because if you think about it, if you have automations that are going and pushing more low food cost dishes, then that drives even more profit. If you have smart upselling that's happening and every dish it could possibly suggest has a low food cost, then that drives more profitability. Literally all of these strategies have a multiplied effect if the food costs are right, because the food costs represent how much profit you're able to make from every single customer order. If you're curious to learn more about the other secrets in the Kava story, I just posted another video walking through the biggest lessons from that crazy 20-year journey and how they went from one location to a $4 billion restaurant business in less than 20 years without franchising, making hundreds of millions of dollars for each of their founders along the way. If you're interested in that, then click to the right of me now as I'm putting it on screen so that it is very easy to click into and watch.